Hi, everyone. This is Michele Graglia.
This is Marianne Hogan.
Hi, I'm Adrian McDonald.
I'm Katie Asmith.
Hi, this is Anthony Gasals.
Hi, my name is Meg Morgan.
Hey, it's Jordan Trove.
This is John Ray.
This is Ryan Van Duzer, and you are listening to the Gotta Run Racing Podcast.
Hey everyone, we are back with another Gotta Run Podcast.
Hello, hello.
How's everyone doing today?
Well, it's May.
It's May.
It's May. Feels like January, but it's May.
We are gearing up for Sulphur Springs, coming up very soon.
Just around the corner.
And we will be there at Sulphur Springs again this year.
We sure will. And we hope the weather is better.
Let's talk about Sulphur Springs for a minute. It's the oldest running ultramarathon in Canada.
Wow.
Takes place in Dundas Valley Conservation Area, the city of Hamilton. And it is Canada's newest Western States qualifier.
Yes, it is. We were there to witness history last year.
That's right.
Pretty cool.
And if you finish the 100K in under 18 hours or the 100 miler under 30 hours, you get yourself a ticket to Western States.
Very cool. If you got a story to tell, be sure to come by and find us at the finish line. We'll be there for about 48 hours. Might take a break or two in between.
Which brings us to our guest today.
Our guest today is Tammy Volock. She is 52 years of age, a CFO for an insurance company in Portland, Maine. That's Beast Coast Portland, not West Coast Portland. According to Ultra Sign Up, she's been running ultras for about a decade, and she's running some pretty cool races, including Vermont 100 twice, Run Rabbit Run, and Mountain Lakes 100 miler in Oregon. She's also going to be towing the line at Leadville this year. Now she's set her sights on the Sulphur Springs 100K here in Ontario. We think it might be her first race outside of the U.S., and coming to Sulphur would be a great place to start because if she finishes her 100K in under 18 hours, she'll earn a ticket to the big show, Western States.
That's right. I think she has 8 tickets already, so finishing her 100K will give her 16 tickets for this year's lottery.
Amazing.
Without further ado, here's Tammy coming up.
Tammy, welcome to Canada, if you couldn't tell by what we're wearing today.
I like it. I almost had my LL Bean plaid on this morning, but I went with this one instead. So,
well, we're wanting to chat with a couple of runners that are coming from afar to toe the line at Sulphur Springs this May in the hopes of getting a Western States ticket. And you're one of the people that came up on our radar. So thanks for joining us. And you're in Portland, Maine. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Very good. So before we dive deep into your ultra running career, let's go back to the beginning. And how did you start running, period? What got you into running?
So I've been running since I was probably 10 years old. We had a hometown 10K, and it was just something that we all did as kids. We never trained for it. We'd go run a 10K, walk, want to lay down, take a nap, and then be sore. It was the first thing you ever experienced for soreness as a 10-year-old. And we just did it together. Yeah. And I was fortunate. One of the local physicians in our hometown, his sister is Joan Benoit Samuelson.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. So she used to run that 10K. And so once we realized who she was, which on the age I pretty much knew who she was at the time, it was exciting to be on the same course as Joan Benoit. So, yeah.
Wow. Do you remember what her time was for the 10K?
So one of my good friends, he was always close to her time, and they must have been right around that 31, 32 minute mark. Yeah.
Wow.
That's tapping into the memory hard at this point. But
what an inspiration at that age to see somebody, a woman especially, doing something like that. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Joan Benoit's a local treasure around here. So she's always good to see.
I'm sure.
What made you decide to take the leap into ultras? And what was your first ultra?
So my first ultra was Big Brad 50K in 2014, I believe. And I guess it's just kind of a progression. Like, I have a lot of friends that got into running late in their life. And so they're doing personal bests and they get to do all these fun things. And if you've been running 5Ks and 10Ks since your teenage years, you're probably not going to personal best anything in your 40s and 50s. So it just got to a point where I was like, well, let's see what can happen here. Until 2011, I never even wanted anything longer than a half marathon. I did my first marathon that year. It was horrible. My husband and I did it together. We walked the big hills. I couldn't feel my legs for a full mile. It was
gosh.
bad things. I didn't train properly. And I said, one and done, never again. And then kind of left it at that. And then the Boston bombings happened, and Boston goes to our location here in Portland. I just took it upon myself to be like, you know what? Nobody can take that from people. And so I worked really hard, got a qualifier in 2014, able to run Boston in 2015.
Wow.
And
On your first try.
yeah, well,
Good for you.
took me 3 times to qualify. I went from a 4:19 to a 4-hour to a 3:41. So
Whoa.
my training got better.
Wow.
That's incredible.
That's determination.
Yeah, so took a little effort, took some knowledge, reading, understanding nutrition, my body, and then I learned that Boston did Boston to Big Sur, and so 2 marathons, 2 coasts, 6 days. And at the time in 2015, Big Sur would set aside some spots for those people. So if you got into Boston, you pretty much could get into Big Sur as a guarantee for the full marathon. And so that was my first real crazy, was spring of 2015, and then it went all downhill from there.
Snowballed, as we say.
I mean, I remember I was listening to a podcast one morning, running into work. My morning commute, I used to run to work once in a while, and I was listening to some guy talk about his meal the night before his ultras was whiskey and pizza, and I was like, it sounds like the perfect sport for me at this point in my life. So here I am.
So how does your first ultra go? The 50K?
So I was supposed to do a 50-miler, and I got plantar fasciitis about a month out, and I got some real heavy PT going with my doctor's office, and they got me to the point where I could run the 50K, and which was amazing. And plantar fasciitis never really goes away, so we managed that every year. But one of my girlfriends, she was going to pace me for the last part of my 50-miler. And when I couldn't run the 50-miler, I said to her, I don't know, I'm not going to be able to do the 50-miler. 50K, I'm not allowed to pace her. And she's like, well, is it crazy to just do it with you? And I was like, no, I think it's awesome. So it was our first ultra, the two of us together. We chatted a lot. We ate a lot. We ran too fast on the first lap, walked a lot more on the second lap. And it was perfect. It was put on by Trail Monster Running, which I'm now a family member of them. So they're very dear to my heart. And the Big Red Ultras in the fall are still my favorite ultras, probably any of the ones that I've run. So
wow.
Yeah, we have a very beautiful piece of Maine here in the southern Maine, Freeport, Portland area, and Bradbury Mountain, where those races are held, is just gorgeous in the fall. So
wow, that's awesome.
So yeah, to tell us about the ultra scene in Maine, because we've never been there. So tell us, how big is it?
It's big. It's growing all the time. Yeah, like I said, so Trail Monster Running is my family, trail family. There's Pro Athletics in further down east in like the Acadia area. There's, I'm not going to think. Trail Monster Trom is in the Camden, so mid-coast area. And then there's, also just some groups of people that kind of circle through all those groups. But it's big. There's quite a few runners in Maine. I definitely wasn't the first of my friends to do a 100-miler when I did them, thankfully. I get a lot of good advice. I have no lack of finding people to run with any given day, whether I want to do a 3-mile loop around Portland or a 30-mile loop in the White Mountains hiking. Like, I can easily find 4 people to go with me.
Wow. That's
great.
awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a good community.
I imagine it's because it's also known as Beast Coast. The trails are pretty technical.
We are gnarly. Yeah. I've run a lot of races now throughout the country. And, I ran Lake Sonoma 50-miler in 2018, and it's dubbed relentless. I will agree with that, but it's smooth. So it might be relentless, but you can run it. And
yes,
there are some sections of trails here. It's just rooty. It's turny. It's rocky, so it's slippery because we always seem to have some good wet weather. Mud is always fun. We don't necessarily have the altitude for the elevation, but we have a lot of good trail. And I've had some dear friends move to the East Coast from the West Coast, and they are shocked on the first trail run that we'll go on. Some of them move back.
Yeah, really. Now, we did have a peek at your ultra sign up, and you've done some pretty awesome races, but one of the ones that stood out to us was the Mountain Lakes 100 in Oregon, which bills itself as the prettiest miler in Oregon. What was it about that race that made you want to cross the country to tackle it?
It was probably, honestly, timing of year. I love fall races. I do love Oregon. So Portland, Maine's the first Portland. Portland, Oregon's the other Portland. I love that area. We had a family member at the time who had a restaurant in that area that we hadn't been to. So all the things lined up together. And then there was one of my friends who lives in the Acadia area. She had signed up for it also. So it was her, myself, and my husband was there crewing us. And it's just gorgeous out there. They say that Mountain Hood just kind of follows you around when you're in that area. Of course, Mountain Lakes is further southeast of that, but it was beautiful. It was fall popped overnight. When on Saturday, it was rainy and drizzly and beautiful, but we didn't really have good views. And it's an out and back, out loop, then back. And on the way back, as coming up one of those rises and when the sun had popped and we were back in the next day, because I'm always in the next day. I'm not fast enough to be the same day. It had just been cold enough overnight that the leaves were all of a sudden this golden yellow. And it literally happened overnight. So highly recommend that race. They do a great job out there. And I know they've struggled with the course with some fires. So I think it's a different course than when I ran it. But.
Right. And fall races, is that because of the timing with winter and whatnot?
Yes. Yeah, you guys would know that. Training through the winter is rough. I mean, I run year round and I run outside whenever I can. We have an Alaskan Malamute and a Siberian Husky for dogs. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, they love snow. They love the trail. We do it, but training long distance through winter is hard. So it's good to just stay active, stay outside, stay happy. And then once spring hits, let those allergies get by and really dig in for a fall race. But
yeah, we've just recently ourselves sworn off spring races. This was the first spring in I don't know how many years. Neither one of us had signed up for a race. And while I'm not regretting that decision in one context is that I didn't have to run through our winter, but in the other way I am because I didn't run through the winter.
We're starting over now.
Starting over now, and it's May. Like, this is crazy, but oh well, testing the waters.
And obviously I broke my own rule because I'm coming to Toronto area to run 100K in pretty much spring. So
yeah, exactly.
Another one of your races that you've completed was Run Rabbit Run. Now, not an easy one. You have 36 hours to finish this thing, and you were cutting it close to the wire there. First, tell us, how hard is Run Rabbit Run for one thing?
Hard, definitely. East Coast, I live at sea level, Portland, Maine. I think that we actually have parts of our city that are under sea level. So this is where I do most of my running. You go to a Colorado race and you're already at 6,000 feet. It sits around 8,000, goes up to 9. Tons and tons of climbing. I actually, the year that I finished it was my second attempt. I had DNF'd it the year before. So I had to go back for that one. And, everybody always looks back on their DNFs with, could I have gotten through it? And I don't regret that call the year before. I'm glad I went back the next year. The weather was a little better. My training was better. I went out earlier to get acclimated to the thin air, and it came together. There was definitely a point during it where I was about 60 miles into it, probably. No, it was past that. It was up around 70. And I was saying to my husband, because he's my crew and pacer, and he gets me through all this stuff on the mental side at times. And I said to him, I'm sitting in the chair and I'm cold and everything's terrible, as it always is. I don't know. I don't think I can do this. And he's, what are you talking about? You're doing fine. And I'd already sat inside down at Olympia, which is the middle part, for an hour or two because I was freezing.
Wow.
So I was doing great on the cutoffs until about 60 miles. And then I was using up a lot of time just trying to warm up and get my mind back around it. And thankfully at that point, one of my trail family members, Al, she had caught up to me and she's sitting in the chair next to me and she says, you know, I learned from Carl Metzger that you should drink hot chocolate. And I said, all right, let's try it. It worked. Got me out of it.
Yay.
And got me back on the course. And then once I got moving again, I was moving fine. Everything was fine. But
Have you tried Fireball during a race?
not during a 100-miler. I have had Fireball on a smaller course. I think that was a 50-miler at one point. And it wasn't at a point where you needed it. It was just at a aid station that they had it.
Okay. All right. Well, if it's going to be cold for Sulphur, I'll be packing some Fireball.
I have gotten to a point where I'm willing to try almost anything. So, yeah.
I'll let you know where you can find us.
I'll also be less grumpy in the 100K, hopefully, than a 100-miler. Because it's really, I feel like that's my breaking point for my mental game a lot is that 100K mark. But
yeah.
Depends. My training hasn't been where it should be. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Well, you had to get Run Rabbit Run done because you had a Western States qualifier ticket on the line. So you don't want to let that go.
Exactly. Those are the things that go through your head for sure.
And when did your quest for Western begin? Or what was the thing that inspired you to even go for it in the first place?
So, it's, again, everybody talks about a few races as being, the races that everybody should do. And when I first started looking at these longer ones, especially the 100-milers, it had already been talked about. I had already seen the movies. I had read Killian's book. I had read Jurek's book. So I already knew about the race and found it interesting. Really, I kept saying at the time, well, I'm building these lottery tickets and I'm going to put my name in the lottery, but I don't even know if I want to run it yet this year. And then you start going through that process. And as it's gotten better coverage and you actually can see more of it from afar, my desire to run it has definitely grown. You watch what people go through and it's a unique course because it gets so hot in some sections and you have to go up over the snow at the beginning and there might be a bear. I think Jim knows something about a bear. And so it's out there in the wild, but it's California and they've got a great vibe going. There's a water crossing. Yeah. What wouldn't you love about it, right?
Exactly.
Well, it really holds up to the vibe. Yeah, it was a great experience for us. We did it a couple of years ago.
Well, you did it. I supported.
I say that's the harder job, by the way. I mean, I'd say for me, I've got the easy job. I just put my head down and keep going. And then when I don't even want to do that, the hard job sits with my crew. So
it's true. Thanks for acknowledging that.
The whole time. You don't get any sleep. You've actually got to navigate driving the course, which is not as well marked as running the course. And you fed like I do. So there's
it's true. It's true. It's true.
Now, last year you took on Leadville. This is
a beast.
It was my first 100-miler back in 2010 that I attempted. I think we have something in common there because what happened to you last year at Leadville? It's probably what happened to me at my first time at Leadville.
I honestly, I'm a slower runner. There's definitely no doubt in that. And I like going out slow. I feel like Leadville does put you on the front end. They want you to go a little faster than I'd rather negative split a race than do what Leadville's asking you to do. But I did that going in. It was warm. It wasn't as hot as it could be. It was warm. I do not really like running in the heat. Again, why I love fall races more. So I was behind what I was hoping for a pace schedule pretty much from the beginning, but everything was going okay. And I still felt good. And then I went through Twin Lakes on the way out and I realized how close I was there. I think I was like within maybe less than a half hour on the cutoff through Twin Lakes. And so, but everything felt great. I couldn't actually run fast because my heart was redlining, just the altitude. And so add a few things there. And I'm coming down the hill into Twin Lakes and my husband's right there. And I had a couple other crew people with me, again, trail family members and Keith and Scott. And I was like, all I want is a sandwich. Throw a sandwich together. Tuna. I love turkey and pickles on white. Nothing else. Maybe mustard, depending on what kind of mustard. I'm kind of a mustard snob. So can't just be yellow mustard. It's got to be something good. And they did put it together. They handed it to me and I didn't even really stop in there, ran straight through. And then I started climbing up Hope Path. And up Hope Path is nice and smooth. Like that front side, it's a beautiful trail.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of breaks because it was just beating me down. But again, everything was okay. And I was watching my watch and I was like, well, I've got the 4 miles on the backside coming in. I'll be much faster down coming on the backside. And then I got to the backside and I realized it was all those like nice loose rocks that some people refer to as scree. And that is not what I run fast on ever. So it took me far longer coming downhill than I expected.
Mm.
And I missed my turnaround by 6 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Have you guys checked out our merch via our website, GottaRun Racing? We have some really cool swag, including the mugs that, if you've watched our YouTube video, that we drink with. Cool red mug with a cork bottom. It keeps liquids nice and cold or warm. What else do we have on there, Norm?
Well, we have our shirts that I'm wearing.
That's right. You can either choose from GottaRunPodcast or GottaRun Racing. You can also find our 20-liter dry bags, which are a steal at $25. Perfect for using it drop-off bag at an aid station. We've got flasks. We also have cooling multifunctional neckwear, which is a fancy word for a cooling buff. Has the GottaRun Racing and podcast logos on it. Not to mention, we have the affiliate links for the 3 companies, for the 3 brands that we are affiliated with, that being Air Relax, Compression Therapy, Caffeine Bullet, and Kinesis Sunscreen. So by following those links, you can access exclusive discounts. So do check that out, GottaRunRacing.com. That sucks.
Well, the turnaround going back up Hope would have been very, very difficult, to try to get that time back.
Yeah.
Wow.
I do like going up over down usually in my life. I just like climbing trails more than running down them. It's same with skiing. I'm a very cautious skier. Anytime it's downhill, I don't like to fall. So
Yeah, I'm with you.
yeah.
Well, in 2010 is when I did Leadville for the first time. And Jody, what did you see when I came back down Hope Pass? What did you see?
Well, first of all, Tammy, going back to your previous point about crewing being more challenging than actually running the race. I was crewing Norm by myself, first time ever in Colorado. So I had to do all the driving. He got up and over Hope. So I was going back to Twin Lakes to meet him as he was coming down off of Hope. And you've crewed before, so you know the people that are ahead of your person, and you kind of know the people that are around the same time as your person. So I was there without a chair. I had nothing other than the stuff he needed. And everyone at Twin Lakes had their party chairs and their coolers, and they were having a good time. I was there for 7 hours. I saw people come and go that I recognized. And then I saw people come and go that I had never seen before. So I was in a panic. And he finally arrived just after sunset. And I knew by the look on his face, he was done. Done.
Now, I will say this. It took me 4 years after that incident to go back to Leadville to get the monkey off my back. I got it done. And you're going back this year, right? And you're going to get it done?
You're going to get it done.
Yeah. So I learned last year, and I said when I DNF'd last year, I learned exactly where I should have pushed myself harder in a few spots, gained some extra time under my belt, and now that I know what the backside of Hope Pass looks like I know how long it's going to take me to get down there. So I know where I need to be. And everybody kind of has a different approach to races, destination races. I like the unknown. I like being surprised by what I'm going to see. So I don't want to necessarily go and scout the course.
Right.
Like I look at it on paper. I listen to some people talk about it. I'll read some blogs on people's experiences. And if I have a friend that's ran it before, I definitely talk to them. And I will listen to the panels, but I like the new adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So yes and no. That backside of Hope Pass just took me for a big surprise. And I'm going back. Yeah, I got the opportunity to run on the Chris Klug Foundation team again. And I just excited. And I don't want to have to go back a third time. So let's do it.
And tell us about the Chris Klug Foundation. We're not familiar.
So they are donor organ and tissue program. So they pretty much, the United States, they are behind all donor organ transplants. They raise money to make sure people are getting donor the organs and tissues and awareness about it. And they're like the Cancer Foundation, but for donor organs. Yeah, they're amazing.
And has that somehow touched you in a personal way, or is it just the idea of it?
Just the idea of it. When I first reached out to them last year, because I ran on their team last year too, they asked, what's your draw? And I was like, it really was when I got my license at age 15 in the state of Maine. You can just check that box. It says, I'd like to be an organ donor. And that was just thinking about that and being able to provide for somebody else when you don't need it yourself anymore.
Right.
It just seems like the right progression in life. I won't get spiritual and I won't go talking about religion here, but that is definitely one way to live on and give yourself back to and pay it forward. So the idea of that and somebody else's life benefiting from your own just is a privilege. And so you bring awareness to that, get people the help that they need and everybody the best life possible that they're doing it.
That's awesome.
I know you're raising money. You're trying to raise $5,000. You're almost halfway there. So we're going to put a link in our description of how they can help you with your cause.
Thank you. That would be fantastic. I really appreciate that. It's a hard climate to raise money, as I'm sure you're aware.
That's for sure.
It's a great cause. And like I said, it really is something that can touch everybody out there. So
absolutely. Now, we've touched on a few of the races that you've done, but are there any interesting things that have happened during an ultra, whether it's wildlife or hallucinations or just anything cool that's happened that you wanted to maybe mention?
Well, when I finally got out of that chair at Run Rabbit Run, we hit the trail. And within a quarter of a mile, there were 2 huge moose on the right-hand side of the trail.
Oh,
moose.
Yep. And
wow.
I love all animals and wildlife, and I really do. But moose terrify me because they're just unpredictable.
Yep, and it should.
I have full respect for moose. And there was 2 gentlemen and myself, my trail family member, Val, and her pacer, who's also a trail family member, Tanya. And we just all stopped and we're like, what do we do? And one of my non-gifts in life is I'm a terrible singer. So I started singing You Are My Sunshine at the top of my lungs. And those moose moved away.
Awesome. I'm curious, because of the type of dogs that you have, what's the longest you've taken them on a training run?
Gosh, for hiking, our Malamute, our younger guy, he has done 12 to 15 miles. I can't remember which one he was on, but he will hike forever. And he would go even further if the temperature is proper.
Wow.
Our older Husky, she is not going to go that far ever. Didn't matter what year, what age. She's just not going to go that far.
Cool.
They're both rescues. They come with their backgrounds, and she's my sassy little bratty girl. And then we have our worker horse of our Malamute, Timber, and he's gone at least 12 and I think 15 once.
Nice.
Very good. So now you're going to be coming to Sulphur Springs, towing the line of Sulphur Springs, continuing your Western States journey. Is this your first time racing outside of the U.S.?
So for an ultra, yes. I did Glencoe Marathon over in Scotland in 2017, but that was marathon distance. So yes, this will be my first ultra. Yep.
Wow.
First time in Canada, then racing in Canada.
I believe so. Been to Toronto once previously, and I definitely ran a long run for something else that I was training for at the time. But that was all pavement back in that day. So I'm looking forward to trail.
Yeah.
And what made you choose Sulphur Spring specifically?
It literally was the Western States qualifier list. Yeah, I did not have a 100-miler on my radar for this year because I didn't know about Leadville yet. And I was looking at the 100K because, like I said, it's a little more manageable. Not that it's easy. None of it's easy. But so I was looking at the 100Ks, and I didn't want to really necessarily travel to the other side of the world. So Toronto isn't that far of a flight for us. And it was early in the year, which I'm, running through the winter stuff. But it meant I would get the ticket out of the way.
There you go.
And then I enjoy my summer and, have some fun.
Awesome. Well, we've said this so many times on our podcast, but we're shocked that more Americans don't come up here to race because, well, first of all, the dollar.
Mm.
You got about 35-40% on us, which is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discount.
We've got some amazing trails across the country, as varied as yours are.
Mhm.
We don't have as many races, but still, and it's a great vibe. Same language, so we're happy that you're coming up, and especially in the current climate that we're having, shall we say?
But we love Canada. We are neighbors. And so
Exactly. We're neighbors, we're friends, regardless of what else is going on. So we're glad that you're coming, but encourage your friends to sign up for more events up here because I think you're gonna love it.
Maine, especially Trail Monster Running, we do put on 100 milers coming up next weekend, and we get a lot of Canadian runners coming down to our race. So it's definitely talked about in our little group here in Maine, but why not, right?
Yeah.
We do need a passport, which is okay.
And Quebec sounds a lot like the Maine trails.
I think so.
Very technical, rocky, rooty. So you guys would feel like you're at home, I think, especially in Quebec. And Quebec's got some pretty gnarly ultras.
Oh, yeah.
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 It's on my list to look at anything in the Northeast when I'm looking for races. Just makes it easier for traveling. So
Yeah.
And Quebec has a Western States qualifier as well called Harricana. So
Oh, I have heard of that actually, yes.
there you go.
So when you finish Sulphur in a couple of weeks, how many tickets are you going to have in the lottery?
I will be up to it's either 8 or 16. I can't remember if I was at 8 I think I was at 8 last year, so I think I'll be up to 16.
Nice.
And you watch the lottery every year?
I typically do. We actually, there's a few of us that usually get together and watch the lottery and cheer it on from afar. I've had one of my friends actually get lucky by being there at the lottery. She got picked because she was in the audience. And so they pull a ticket for people in the audience if you're actually there.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right. That's very lucky.
Yeah, that is lucky. Holy cow. Well, there's a great vibe at Sulphur. There's a few hills and there's a nice climb into the finish line, but we'll be there.
That's right. You'll be doing it 5 times that one, the final climb to the finish line, 5 times? 20?
Yeah, 20K loop, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
And we're really hoping the weather is better this year because last year it was an absolute downpour, which of course caused mud and all that jazz. But
Well,
the way that this spring's going, we were hoping for better.
yeah, we had a lot of rain down here in Maine this year. So, but it's been strange because we've had a lot of rain, but our trails are actually in pretty good shape. So I don't know if we're getting better in trail maintenance and drainage or if it really hasn't rained and it just feels like it has.
Now you mentioned in a email that we had back and forth that you're not feeling as prepared for this one, but regardless, you're going to get it done, right?
The vibe will push you across the finish line.
You know, I like loops in a situation like this. I like knowing what I'm up against every time I go out there. So being undertrained, which I fully am undertrained, just haven't been able to get out of my own way this year to get out the door. But I think I'll be okay.
And I'm sure your crew also loves loops.
Well, I'm not allowed a pacer in the 100K. So
But your husband's coming,
yes,
though, right?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I told him, I was like, you don't even need to be there if you don't want to. And he's like, I'll be there. And I said, thank you.
Well, it'll be easier for him to crew than Leadville, that's for sure.
Yeah. And they don't allow you to have a crew at Winfield anymore, the turnaround. So when I got over there, I had to wait for a shuttle and get a ride. And it was a sad moment.
Well, come and say hi at Sulphur Springs. We're going to be there because we're chatting with all the finishers across. So come and say hi. If we miss you, come and say hi to us.
That sounds great. Will do.
Well, before we let you go, we like to end with some rapid fires. Since you're a similar age to us, we're going to do some older questions. 80s or 90s music?
80s.
80s all the way. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Will Wheaton. Which one's that?
Star Trek.
Yes.
I love Will Wheaton.
Treadmill or a -20 outdoor run? -20 Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit.
Really cold. Again, the dog's probably out the door.
Out the door, of course. Name a TV show that you're embarrassed to say you watch.
Oh, boy. It's on Netflix right now. It's called Younger. I've been binging it, and it's terrible, and I love it.
What's it called?
Younger.
What's it about?
41-year-old who sells herself as a 26-year-old to get a job after taking years off to raise a daughter.
Oh, that sounds fun. We'll have to check it
Yeah,
out.
sure. It's intriguing.
It's more my line than my husband's line, so I've been binging it when he's not around.
Nice. What's your go-to at a well-stocked aid station?
Bacon.
Bacon, nice.
Yum. Yeah, I think they have a bacon station at Sulphur. I think they do. Yeah. Would you rather be a professional writer, painter, or musician?
Again, because of my lack of talent for singing, I would love to be a professional musician. I wish I had that.
Yeah. It's not too late. You can still learn.
When you're tone deaf, I think it probably is too.
All right, Norm.
Pick a superpower that you'd like to have.
I've always wanted to be able to fly.
That's a common one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, and do you know what a butter tart is?
I do not.
You don't? Okay.
Then you have to come and say hi to us. We'll have a butter tart ready for you at the finish line.
With and without raisins. So it's...
That was one of the questions. And I was like, maybe I'll find out.
Yeah, we weren't going to ask you because we assumed you didn't know what it was, but you'll be able to answer that question when you cross the finish line at Sulphur.
Sounds good.
All right, Tammy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this race. So it'll be fun. No matter what happens, it's going to be fun.
Absolutely.
See you in a few weeks.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tammy. We'll meet you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
And that was Tammy Volock of Portland, Maine, coming up to Sulphur Springs in a couple weeks.
It sounds like the Maine scene is
happening.
It's pretty happening. Wouldn't mind going to do a race there.
Yeah, for sure. Just not yet.
No, it has to be a fall race, of course. I'm not going there until everything is dry. And speaking of races,
yeah,
we still haven't found one for ourselves, and we still have not got any suggestions,
feedback.
From you guys.
Yeah, we're desperate, guys. We're desperate. We need motivation. We've been on calendars, but for some reason, it's really hard to find a 50 plus 100 at the same race in September.
Well, I did have a suggestion, but for some reason, I'm not allowed to go past 100K anymore.
You got shot down because it's 125. You promised after UTMB you would go 100 or below. Therefore, 125 does not qualify. Okay? And that 125 you were looking at is more like 100 miler. So...
Okay, well,
so
there you go.
We need a 50 and 100, preferably in Canada, in September.
Guys, please give us some suggestions.
Yes, please. Anybody.
On that note, we will be there at Sulphur Springs, and please come and say hi. We'd love to chat with you about any stories in your ultra running journey.
For sure. And if you want a butter tart, I'll hook you up.
Yeah, come and say hi. You get a butter tart.
I'm not making them, but they do come from a lovely little market in Bellwood, just up the road from Orangeville.
Oh.
Yes, I'm special ordering them.
And you'll have more non-raisins than raisins?
I don't know about that, but I'm also I'm also packing Fireball, so...
Oh my God. Jeez, we're going to be fat and drunk when we leave.
We could survive on butter tarts and Fireball. Are you kidding? Sign me up, man.
All we have to do is run, and we're good.
All right.
All right. Until next time.
Bye.
Cheers.